Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Frank Leboeuf. Plenty going on today. Later in the show, we'll be reacting to the news that Inzaghi has left Inter Milan. But we kick things off with a big discussion that we had just a few days ago. Will Bruno stay or go? We got our answer today. As I've always said, I'd be willing to do it if Manchester United thought so. I spoke to coach Ruben Amorim, who throughout that period was very annoying to me not to go. The club said they would not be willing to sell me, only if I wanted to leave, that it was not a financial issue. Then I spoke to my wife and family, and she asked me what my personal goals were in my career. I want to maintain myself at the highest level, playing in the big competitions, and I feel capable of it. Joining us now, James Ollie, Ian Dark, and I suppose a very smug Don Hutchinson. Don, were you right?
I was right. I called it a couple of nights ago. We'd had this fantastic debate and argument about Bruno. Should he go? Should he take the money? Should he stay? And I was very adamant if I was Bruno, I'd have the conversation with Ruben Amorim and knock on his door and find out what the plans are before you make that decision. Then all of a sudden you see Matheus Cunha signed. They've been linked with Brian Mbeumo today. So obviously when he's had that conversation with the manager's told him that he wants to stay because... Let's get it right. I mean, Bruno Fernandes has come out today and said all the right things. And one of the best quotes, I think he said, it was the easy thing to do was to go and take the move and take the money. The hardest thing to do is to stay and be part of the rebuild. And I think he's had that conversation with the manager. And the manager's convinced him that the best thing is to stay. And listen, Al Hilal will be around for 1,000 years. They'll never be as big as Man United. And he's club captain.
You would have said you would have gone, Frank.
Yeah. And I'm respect his decision. I think it's a nice decision because it shows that football matters more than money. And I say when you're over 30 and you have an offer like that, you have the right to decide to go for the money because you have proven throughout your career that you love football and you worked for like a decade at the best level, and you have the choice. And if you decide to leave the highest level, I think it's just respectable, and he decides to stay. Well done. Well, don't forget that he's not going to be playing for free. We discussed about that before. He's going to get like 6-7 million net a season, which is huge, for a normal person. And he's not going to get 200 million, but it's going to be okay for the rest of his life. And he can keep his pride. I think he has the right to think that way.
Ian, I have my alerts on every time you send out a message on X. And the latest one, of course, was about Bruno Fernandes and how Manchester United, despite 100 million, couldn't afford to let him go. They've got their way.
Yeah, they couldn't afford to let him go. He's by far and away their best player. He scores goals. He makes goals. He's the inspiration of the team. He was the light in all the gloom at Manchester United this season. I mean, and he's got this fantastic offer to go to Saudi Arabia, or he had that offer. He's going to get the offer again when he gets to about 32, 33. So it's not a once-in-a-lifetime job. He knows that as well. And he wants to be part of this rebuild at Manchester United. For once, they've had a good week. Bruno's staying. Looks like they're going to... Well, they have got Cunha from Wolves. And looks like they might get Mbeumo as well. So there's, an attacking spearhead taking shape for Manchester United. No, the other thing is, they'd have got £100 million for him, but they'd have needed to spend 70 of it to replace him. And how could they have replaced him when they don't have European football to offer a top player?
So, James, what does this mean for Manchester United going forward? If they can afford to turn down 100 million, have they got lots of money, secret money, under the bed or something?
Well, no, I mean, clearly they briefed quite heavily that they were running low on cash and that, PSR compliance was an issue, and you wonder whether maybe they've sort of overplayed that a little bit to get a head start in the market. I mean, I have to disagree with a little bit of what's been said already in that, well, two things. The joke reaction to this is, well, if Bruno Fernandes wants to play at the highest level and go for the biggest competitions, then he has to leave Manchester United because he's not going to go for that at Manchester United. They're not in Europe next season. They're not going to challenge for the Premier League. I'd be interested to see if a top European club came in for him this summer and offered the kind of money that United would want to sell him, whether his reaction would have been the same and not necessarily dropping down in terms of the standard of football to go to the Saudi Pro League. But I still say the issue with Bruno Fernandes is this. If Ruben Amorim wants to play 3-4-2-1 or a variation of that, where does Bruno Fernandes play? He doesn't play as one of the number 10s. He's not great in that system. And if they're signing Mbeumo and they've obviously already got Cunha, then those two 10s are filled. He's not a centre forward. And when he plays as a central midfielder, you're relying an awful lot on that other central midfielder alongside him to do all of the defensive work and really kind of counteract the fact that Fernandes obviously wants to get on the ball and make things happen. And we saw really in the Europa League final that when he played in that position, in a 2 with Casemiro, didn't really work. And it was quite easy for a team like Tottenham, who were not necessarily renowned for this, to just sit in, wait and pick them off on the counter-attack. And look, I mean, yes, I understand the argument about the goals and assists, and clearly he's dug them out time and again this season, but it has very much felt as though it's just give the ball to Bruno and let's see what happens and let's kind of muddle through to the summer. Well, that isn't the plan going forward. They have to have a coherent system going forward. And I'm just not quite sure with the players the player they've signed, the other one they're bringing in, you assume they're going to look at a centre forward as well. Where exactly does Fernandes fit into this team and how does the balance work? I feel that's just a big question for Amorim.
Don?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. I think he plays alongside Ugarte. Ugarte will provide the legs. Casemiro won't be there long term. And then all of a sudden, I think Ahmad's the question here. Where does Ahmad play? I think what will happen in the short term is I think Mbeumo will play as a number 9. Then they've got Cunha and Ahmad who plays as 2 sort of false 10s. I think with Bruno, he's one of these players where you play him and you get him on the ball, and whether it's a quarterback role as a number 8 to start all the moves off, because sometimes that's very important. And I take the point against Tottenham in the final, but Bruno can't do it all. He can't play as a number 8 and a number 10 and score goals and be a number 9, track back and do the lot. That's why he needs help. That's why the Sands have been brought in. And I get the feeling Man United are not going to stop. It might be this window and the next couple of windows that have convinced him to stay. But in terms of where he plays, 100% he will be the first name on the team sheet, guaranteed.
Well, the question is simple. The answer is simple. I really think that Amorim didn't ask Bruno Fernandes to stay, to put him on the bench. So he's going to find a solution. He's going to find a way to make him play, and the best way, because he needs him. And to answer to James' wondering, I'm not sure that any other club, because the question at first was, do you go to Saudi Arabia or do you stay to Manchester United? Because do you have any other choices? The price tag to sell him would have been too huge for most clubs. And
no one's paying 100 million for him.
Exactly. He's 30 years old, with all due respect, with the wage that he has. Maybe he wouldn't have any other choices. So the question was in between Saudi Arabia and Manchester United. And he's going to play at the highest level because it's a Premier League. So that's the highest level. We're not talking about the highest results and position in the table, but he hasn't got any other choices. If he wants to play for a big club, Manchester is a big club with bad results, but it's still a big club.
Manchester United with open arms. Welcome back, Jadon Sancho.
Yes, that's one way of putting it. Yeah, I mean, Jadon Sancho, what a sort of fall from grace, really. Signed for United, I think it was £73 million. Had his choice of clubs at that stage. A lot of European top sides were in for him. And now he's got to a point where a club has paid £5 million not to sign him.
Wow.
He's really at a crossroads in his career. And I have some sympathy with him in the sense that there's obviously been a lot of change at Chelsea. I wouldn't necessarily say that Maresca's style probably suits him as much as maybe it could do. He kind of started well there, he ended well there, but the large bulk in between was not great. And I mean, look, my understanding is Chelsea were open to trying to get a deal done to sign him. Obviously, the fee wasn't an issue. They'd agreed a £25 million fee with United when they agreed the loan last summer. The issue was wages, and he's on north of £300,000 a week at Manchester United. And that's the crazy. Chelsea average wage, I know everyone talks about Chelsea and the 8, 9, 10-year contracts, but what they've done quite well is the average wage is actually pretty low there. To Jadon Sancho, that was completely incompatible with where he is now because he's already earning a massive wage. And ultimately, Sancho decided, I think, that he didn't want to take that huge cut. Chelsea weren't willing to compromise on their structure. And so back he goes to Manchester United with a very uncertain future.
Like watching him at Chelsea, 5, 6 out of 10, pretty much every game. There was nothing from Jadon Sancho which made you stand up and think, wow, this kid is the one that we grew up with watching, light up Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, that's crazy, a crazy nightmare for Jadon Sancho, I have to say, because I mean the guy who decided to give him that money when he left Dortmund, and the agent who decided to agree, in fact ruined his career. Because the solution is impossible right now. Because the wage is too big, because of his performances and the pressure is not possible for him. That guy is in no man's land where nobody wants him. So he cannot even go back. Well, yeah, he could, sacrificing a lot of money.
But it will be the first time he's played under Amorim, so that would be something that they're trying to obviously work out.
Yeah, but he showed before that he couldn't handle the pressure of being in a big club. That's the thing. Dortmund was kind of, with all due respect, you have to take everything. Dortmund, you feel that people, they take care of the players. Manchester United, even they take care of players, they launch you. You have to go there. The pressure is big, it's worldwide. So you have to perform immediately, which didn't happen to him, like didn't happen to many others. And the fact is, you cannot go back to the past and go back to the basics, unless Jadon Sancho say, oh, you know what? I don't get the money that I deserve. I cut my money in maybe in 4, and I go to play for another club, and I rebuild my career. That's the only way that guy can have a decent career. But now, if he's stubborn getting that money, which I think he will, because we wouldn't, his career is ruined for me.
Don?
Yeah, I think there's two ways to look at this when you talk Jadon Sancho. Either he got mismanaged at Man United and they didn't get the best out of him, or that shirt was too heavy for him and it weighed heavy for him and he couldn't cope playing for a massive club. I mean, James has nailed it in terms of the contract that Chelsea wanted to try and put him on. At the same time, don't forget Man United are paying his wages to play for Chelsea. So all of a sudden, when they come back for pre-season, they've got the Jadon Sancho issue to sort, they've got the Marcus Rashford to sort, they've got the Anthony scenario to sort as well. Yeah. So there's quite a few dilemmas and quite a few problems for Ruben Amorim to try and sort out in that pre-season. So I guess the three guys that I mentioned have got no future. It'll be one of them where the three guys will probably go on loan somewhere, but it'll still be a case of Man United paying half of their wages somewhere.
You know, he's got an opportunity now to hit the ground running in the Club World Cup and really prove that he can nail down that number 9 position for Chelsea next season.
This is always fascinating, Frank, and I'm sure you've experienced it. A player that has done well at a club which isn't necessarily under the spotlight like Chelsea is. And it's kind of sink or swim, isn't it? Especially as a striker.
Yeah, because expectations are going to be big and the pressure is going to be huge.
Is it one of those things that you don't know until you try? Like, if I'm looking to buy a player, what am I looking? What are the signs that kind of give me an idea as to whether or not
you won't know before you experienced it.
Right.
And that's the thing. And when you're a player, you're a competitor. You want to play for the best clubs, and you want to try. Hopefully, it's going to work. When I came to Chelsea, I was completely unknown, so that was kind of Frank Who, so that was nice. But guys come like Vialli, Zola, they came with they had a big pressure, even if it wasn't the Chelsea that we know now. But Delap's going to have a pressure. Fans are fed up with a bad striker, let's say, and they want somebody productive. And I was wondering why Mboma doesn't want to come to Chelsea. I mean, was it a possibility or not? James maybe knows better, but I would have loved to see him at Chelsea. And I think it would have been very good for the club. But let's give a chance to Liam and see how it works. But unless you have tried, you wouldn't know if you deserve to be a Chelsea striker.
Don, you've seen it. Obviously, Stevie talks about it at Liverpool. You've seen players scoring for fun in clubs that don't get that same sort of attention. Absolutely,
and this will be a test of actually what is Liam Delap like. I mean, he got 12 goals in an Ipswich side that really struggled. They obviously lost 1 million games in the service that he got. So the goals that he did score was quite impressive. But now you put that Chelsea shirt on, I mean, straight away I'm thinking, like, he's got the talent, he's got the size, his build is good, he's competitive, he likes to win duels in the air, he's physically very strong. But the one player I think who's not going to be happy with this is Nicholas Jackson, because he's a man that just wants to fight the world every single game, and he's not going to be happy sitting on the bench. So are Chelsea building a squad with two strikers, 2 number 9s if you like, who are going to be happy trying to vie for the same place? Or if Liam Delap doesn't start, which I expect him to do, what happens to Nicholas Jackson? But I think what you can do if you're a Maresca is you build a squad that's going to be competitive for all domestic and Champions League competition. So I actually think Chelsea, for the first time now, Dan, after being a little bit down on them in terms of like what's the plan and where they go. And I think now for the first time they're being linked with Mike Maignan, the AC Milan goalkeeper, and they desperately need a goalkeeper. They've been linked with him today. So all of a sudden, with the midfield sort of set with Lavia and Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, that's pretty much set for the next few years. Centre-back, I still think they need a Thiago Silva, like a Frank Leboeuf signing, where it's just they can calm all the young players down who are running here, there and everywhere. And then all of a sudden, if you can get your wingers flying, and that probably goes back to the lack of form of Jadon Sancho or Madueke at times, because sometimes possession's a little bit slow, but certainly if they sign Mike Maignan, I mean, I got it badly wrong with Andre Onana when he was at Inter, because he looked good there and he bombed at Man United, but this guy can't bomb, he's too good.
James, where are we on Magnan's future?
Well, I think what's going on here is Magnan's got a year left on his Milan deal, from the way this has come out and from the conversations I've had today, I think this is the players' side driving the interest to sort of say, right, what's out there? We've got a year left. It's a lot easier to sort of go and negotiate with Milan about a new deal if there's an offer on the table from a big club. Now, that's not to say there's nothing in this, because as Don said, I think everybody could see Chelsea, even though they've got about 26 keepers on their books, they need a good one. And, you know, he would fit that bill. He would be, I think, 30 million euros was the kind of price I heard floating around today, which again is not prohibitive. Proven, could come in. I mean, he doesn't really fit the mould, I would say, of a Chelsea signing. You know, when you look at the sort of policy under the Bowley-Clearlake era, it's been to sign youngsters and try to bring them up and develop them. I think he's 30 next month, the Milan goalkeeper. So he's sort of at the other end of his career, but you can make the case, you know, for an exception for a goalkeeper. So this one is very early stages, but you can see how it could fit together. But equally, I could see a scenario where we're sat here in 6 weeks, 8 weeks' time, and he signed a new deal at Milan.
as much as I love Mike, Magic Mike is his nickname.
Okay. Is there some sort of movie that?
No, because the guy is so exceptional. And
you've been asked to be in that movie?
No, but as much as I like him, and I think he will fit perfectly to Chelsea. If Chelsea has decided to give an exception in their training business system, I think they should, and Don alluded it, where you need a new Thiago Silva. Right. It will be more interesting to have somebody as a centre-back.
That's where you would kind of use your old man chip.
Yeah, exactly.
If you had
that would be, for me, my decision. But if they decide to go for Mike, that's a very good decision, because the guy is a real good goalkeeper.
What I'm talking about is if you know him. You're not going to Mike?
No. Well, yes, I know him, and I appreciate him, and I think it will be very useful to Chelsea.
James, obviously, everybody waxing lyrical about PSG at the weekend, and a lot of talk about their youth. In theory, it is kind of similar to the plan that Chelsea had, isn't it? And the fact you get young, exciting players, you pay maybe a lot for them, but you try and get them to fulfil their potential. Why does it work so well for PSG? And despite Don's blabbering, Chelsea are still very much behind the 8 ball.
Well, I think it was because PSG were more strategic in the way that they went about building this squad. I think obviously the ownership had been there a lot longer. I think they've learned from their mistakes. And I think what happened at Chelsea is, you know, you had a situation where Todd Boehly and Clearlake Capital, two groups, came together as a coalition to take over the club, but one entity started making the transfers, Todd Boehly, and then gradually Clearlake had kind of taken that over. So you've had almost two competing visions within the ownership, and it's been a very confused picture, I have to say. When you've spoken to people who've been doing these deals, you know, whether it's on behalf of Chelsea or when they're negotiating with Chelsea, you hear time and again people saying there's so many voices in these deals. There's sort of lack of clarity about how they want to go and get these deals done. I think what Clearlake have done in the last kind of year or so is just kind of sideline Boehly a little bit, bring a bit of authority, bring a bit of calm to it. And I think that's why you're just starting to see some green shoots there. Obviously, they've sort of exceeded their own internal expectations this season by qualifying for the Champions League. They've now won their first trophy. Okay, it's the Conference League, but it can be a stepping stone in the same way that a lot of clubs have used the EFL Cup or the League Cup in the past to go on to win bigger honours. And there's now a bit of kind of credibility to the project, which can only help them really in the market this summer when they're trying to sell it maybe to other players.
I think you cannot compare Paris Saint-Germain and Chelsea. Come on, you have to be fair. Fabian Ruiz is 29, Hakimi is 26, Marquinhos is 30. I don't know Donnarumma, how old is he? Remember that Luis Enrique started with Vitinha, Neves, and when Emery, three young guys, and he changed. And when Emery is on the bench, Fabian Ruiz plays. You don't have that kind of possibility with Chelsea. They're only young players. So it's fair to say that Paris Saint-Germain has a young team, but you have like 3-4 players who can handle that. And I always ask for that, experienced players, like 2-3, that would be enough for Chelsea. But that's not part of the business.
Are there enough green shoots for you, Ian?
At Chelsea, well, as James was saying, they have exceeded expectations. Everybody said they probably wouldn't make the top 4. They did. So they're in the Champions League. They've won a European trophy. The team, I think, is going to get better. It's a young team. There's talk, by the way, I mean, I think Maignan would be a fantastic signing if they can get him in goal. I think Delap is going to be promising and only get better. So I think that's a good signing as well. There's some talk they might sell Madueke. So they might be looking to get rid of one of those wide players. It will be interesting to see what developments there are at Chelsea. But I'd say at the moment, although things are a bit chaotic there, usually it is satisfactory work in progress, really.
Meanwhile, Arsenal normally pride themselves on getting business done early, James. We've seen in the past under Arteta. Not certainly so far this transfer window, this summer. Like Sesko's been the only player that we've seen linked to the Gunners properly so far. What's going on there?
It's only 2 days, Dan. I mean, come on.
Well, I'm a bit impatient. We've got to do this show every day, James.
We need news.
I need something.
I mean, look, so Martin Zubimendi, the Real Sociedad midfielder, that deal is done. It's just a case of when they want to announce it. So I would expect that to kickstart their summer fairly soon. I still think Sesko's the number 1, but the way it's being painted in some corners is Arteta wants Sesko, Andrea Berta, the new sporting director, wants Gyökeres. I'm not sure it's quite that binary, but I do think there's a little bit of a discussion internally about where they go. The other factor here is that we were led to believe for pretty much the whole of this calendar year that Sesko had a release clause in his contract. Now, Leipzig have kind of privately made it known to us that actually there isn't one, and the fee would be probably 20 million euros higher. You're probably talking about 85 million euros now, when I think that the general kind of consensus was you might be able to get him for around 60 or 65.
Wow.
So again, that's kind of got everybody thinking, well, actually, you know, again, very promising player, but he's very young. He's not proven at the highest level, obviously not proven in the Premier League either. Is he going to be the striker who can come in and next season win you the title? Because that's obviously what Arsenal want. They don't want someone who's going to come in and wait 2 or 3 years because they've been waiting. They've been runners-up for 3 years in a row. They want the finished product, really. They want someone who they know can come in and get them 20-plus goals a season. And there is a bit of a debate internally at that price about whether he's worth it.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
But those people, if it's not their money, they don't care. They can spend it. Right. It would be in their bank account. They will be more careful about that, or more cautious. That's crazy. When you have so many examples of players, and we were talking about Jadon Sancho before, and you know that you're going to spend big money to a player who play for a smaller club. When Sesko played for Leipzig is a family club. You're going to launch him in Arsenal. What is the guarantee that you have that guy is going to produce? You spend 80 million euros.
No guarantee. Look at Nunez.
Oh, yeah, and so many others.
Where do we stand?
Well, as he subsequently said, season 3 is often when they kill off the main character as well, and that could be what is happening here. I mean, to be honest with you, the silence is deafening from Spurs, both privately and publicly. I mean, they've never been great sort of on the record in terms of, backing their manager with public statements. You don't tend to hear from the ownership at all. You hear from Daniel Levy maybe once or twice a year, and that's kind of through club channels. It's very rare that you sort of get to him and certainly interview him. So the silence is deafening. I think what's happening is I think Spurs are trying to secure a replacement for him. I think we should just caveat the idea that Ange is gone with the idea that look at what Manchester United did last summer with Erik ten Hag. They spent a number of weeks trying to find a replacement and then ended up going into the season with him. So I don't want to sit here and say he's gone, that's it, it's over. But I think what's happening is Spurs are trying to finalise a replacement for him before they confirm that he's gone. He's been speaking, sort of pretty openly in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been in a lot of those press conferences. I went to Bilbao for the Europa League final, and before and after that game, he was sort of, que sera about his future. So I think he knows the writings on the wall. The conversations that I've had with some of the senior figures at the club can't get past 22 league defeats, even though they've won their first trophy in 17 years. They just cannot get past that number and how badly it's affected the squad. And I think there's been a bit of a disagreement behind the scenes at Tottenham for a while about Postecoglou's desire to just prioritise the Europa League at the expense of everything else. He said it before the final in Bilbao. Since January, this has been our priority. Well, that's fine. And look, it paid off. And there'll be a lot of Tottenham fans who want him to stay because he's ended that 17-year wait for a trophy. But you can't just sort of write off half a season in the Premier League and have fans paying top dollar to come and watch their team every week to just lose sort of home and away time and again, and what that does to morale and what that does to the status of the club. One of the worst Premier League seasons in Tottenham's history. That feels as though internally they feel it's too big a price to pay. So it feels as though it's just a matter of time, but they do have to identify and secure a replacement before they announce anything.
What do the players want, James?
Well, that, again, depends on who you talk to. So, my understanding is that the players were not entirely supportive of Ange Postecoglou's approach in the second half of the season. I believe a group of them went to see him to sort of say, look, we need to do more work on the opposition. We need to be more versatile. And I think that's one of the reasons why you saw a more pragmatic approach in Europe, where there was a competition where they could actually win something. I think that there was a compromise there between what Ange Postecoglou wanted to do, how he wanted to play. We are who we are, mate. That kind of, we go and play how we want to play wherever we are. And the players sort of saying, well, that's all well and good, but we've got 5, 6, 7, 8 players out injured. We're not actually the best team in the league like you had in Celtic, like you've had in Japan, like you've had before in your career. We need to be more balanced in our approach. And they got over the line in that. So, look, there'll be a lot of players who've done well. Lucas Bergval's one. I know that he's particularly, he has a lot of admiration for Postecoglou. He's done a lot for his career, broken into the team this season, signed a new contract. And again, my understanding was that wasn't sort of triggered by the existing deal he had. That was a reward for the way that he's played and the progression that he's shown. And Postecoglou was, by all accounts, the driving force behind that. So he will have his supporters in the dressing room, but equally he's going to have players who have felt marginalised and actually felt at times maybe a little embarrassed by the approach, because Spurs have had their pants pulled down home and away, 22 times this season. And let's be honest, Dan, nobody likes that, do they?
And there is something of a feel-good factor for them having done that. So I think there's quite a large contingent of Tottenham fans who would say, let's give him another try. Let's hope this is a season it might be more in hope than expectation, but let's give him another try of an injury-free season, and he's learned to be a bit more pragmatic too when the occasion demands.
You have the best example of your best friend of the season, Manchester United, in that case, where you won something, it didn't work to keep the coach. And that's really, that trophy is really the tree which hides the forest, as I always say.
The counter-argument to that is Manchester United and Tottenham have got different aspirations, different history. Like, this is a man who's just delivered your first trophy in 17 years. For Manchester United, of course, it's about winning trophies every year.
But he showed for the 2 years that he had only one option on his game. He changed something crucial comparing to Antonio Conte when he first came, and we say, okay, that's a revival, that's fantastic, we enjoy watching Tottenham. It lasted 6 months. And then we've been waiting since then a change, a drastic change of how to defend well, how to work together. It never happened. Yes, Romero, Van de Ven have been injured throughout the season, but we've tried to find excuses to Postecoglou, but at the end of the day, you don't have anything to say. Yeah, you won the trophy, but you finished 17th in the league. Now, talking about the players, because the players, supposedly, they're not very happy, they're not very supportive.
I'm intrigued, Frank, if you're a senior player in that Spurs side and in January you learn that you're going to focus on the Europa League and kind of sod the Premier League, how do you feel as a player?
Well, first I feel for the fans because we all know that the Premier League is very important for the English fans. And you say, no, I don't want to choose. I mean, I want to fight. Every game I play, I want to win. Otherwise, you put the best team in the Europa League and you put the reserve team in the Premier League and you explain that to the fans. Because otherwise, you're going to be hammered because you don't fight enough, because it doesn't count. But the players have to take responsibilities throughout the season. The players who have been there for a while.
Yeah, but if you've got a manager who says, don't worry about it. It's all right, mate.
Yeah,
but don't worry, we just lost another Premier League game, mate. It's all about now what's going to happen on Thursday.
That's there. You have the excuses, but you cannot have excuses all the time. The next season, let's say
your manager's given you that excuse this season.
Yeah, but it's not nice. It's not nice for the club. It's not nice for the fans. It's not nice for your resume at the end of your career. Some players say, "Oh, well, I won the Europa League, but I finished 17th in the league." Well, what happened? What did you do during the season?
But people don't ask you what.
Yeah, well, maybe the tricky people.
How would you feel if we've never really discussed that? Actually, it's an interesting point that James made that some of the senior players weren't happy with this stance.
That's quite normal when you're getting embarrassed and when you've been shambolic in the Premier League and you've lost 22 games, which is I think a Premier League record that you've lost that amount of games and you haven't gone down. That's normal that a group of players, the senior players, would knock on the manager's door and say, listen, we've got to do something different here. And if the manager, like you said there, Dan, is saying, well, don't worry about it, we'll try and win a European competition, you ain't going to be happy. So two things can happen. You either follow your manager and you keep getting beat in the Premier League every single week, or you have a mini conversation. If I'm playing with Frank, we have a conversation of me and Frank over at the back. We're saying, we ain't playing on a halfway line today, Frank. We're going to do our own thing, and we're going to do the right thing, and we're going to defend properly, and we're going to defend in a shape, and we're going to have a conversation with Porro, and we're going to tell a doggy not to be on the halfway line because you close your eyes and you picture a Tottenham goal that's gone in against them. The two fullbacks will be 30 yards out of position. So that's a dangerous scenario if players start doing things off the cuff by themselves. I think it's impossible he stays on. I mean, the last game of the season, more or less, was the nail in the coffin. They went 1-0 up against Brighton and got done 4-1. I mean, you just can't go into a season where you say, forget the Premier League and we'll try and win a European competition or we'll try and win a cup, because that's what I do. And I credit Ange for it and I like him. He's very likeable. But honestly, managers at Tottenham being sacked for finishing 5th. You can't be losing 22 games in the Premier League and expect to keep your job. It's impossible.
Simone Inzaghi has left Inter Milan. He will be coaching in Saudi Arabia next season. Of course, the man who just days ago saw his team thrashed by PSG in the Champions League final. Ian's still with us, but we've got to start, of course, with Don. Don, how much of a surprise is this? Your beloved Inter has lost their coach.
Well, only because I'm an Italian fan, not an Inter fan. But I think it's bad for Serie A that they've lost one of their top coaches to Al Hilal. I think probably the conversation's had. If you go back to 2021 when he took over, Dan, they've been called the free transfer market kings because Edin Dzeko was a free signing, Çalhanoğlu was a free signing, Alexis Sanchez, Onana, Thuram. They've built teams on free signings. Denzel Dumfries was 10 million. Jan Sommer, the goalkeeper, was only 5. So actually, when you think of the body of work that he's done in Inzaghi, he's been massively punching above his weight in terms of bringing 6 trophies in. Now I think the conversation has probably been behind the scenes to the hierarchy. What's the plan going forward? Have we got money to spend? Because they look like an aging side. They need to be spending big money on bringing younger, faster, energetic players in, like PSG have just humiliated them in the Champions League final. So I think the conversation has gone, well, there's not loads of money there. They're not a cash-rich club. And then he's probably thought, well, I'm going to make the move. It's now or never. And he's going to go and fill his boots. But I think it's a sad story, I think, for Serie A.
When did you realise that Inter weren't going to win this, Don?
15, 20 minutes in. Me and you had it 1-1 and Inter win on pens. It was, in the end, it was a mismatch. I think I was probably looking on the team shape of Inter and 3 at the back and 5 and being pragmatic, and the boys in midfield would be dogged. But PSG were just too classy. I mean, that was the conversation I was going to try and jump in before about Chelsea, with Maresca being a Guardiola disciple and they play slow football. Enrique doesn't. I mean, his boys in midfield can handle a ball, but he's got wingers. Not anymore. He's got wingers that are direct. And the best thing about PSG winning this game, it feels like to me this is going to be an evolution of how the game's going to be played over the next 2 or 3 years. Newcastle do it at St James's Park, where they trample all over teams. And the best thing, I think, from a neutral's point of view, watching that game unfold, when they got 2-0 up, they didn't just keep the ball. They didn't just go side to side and defenders have loads of touches and the goalkeeper taking sloppy touches and playing tippy-tappy. They went for 3 and they went for 4 and they went for 5. And in the end, they were looking for 6 and 7 and 8. And that's how you play football. And I thought it was a brilliant game from their point of view. And it was a great story, obviously, with Luis Enrique losing his daughter. And it was a beautiful tifo that was put on the behind one of the goals, behind the games. But in terms of the game and how it was going to unfold, I think 10, 15 minutes in, you knew this was going one direction.
Ian, for a neutral, I think we would have preferred something closer, a little bit more exciting, a little more dramatic like we saw in the semi-final against Barcelona. But having said that, it was difficult not to just sit back and enjoy what PSG put on, and what a show it was.
They were stunning, absolutely stunning. I thought it was one of the greatest performances we've seen from any club in any final. Just brilliant. And Inter looked old and tired, but I think a lot of clubs might have looked old and tired playing against what they produced on that day. It was a superlative display from Paris Saint-Germain. Very deserving first European title for them.
Don't forget that it's made of details, football. Had Marcus Thuram scored the goal at the end of the first half, it could have been another game. But yeah, the confidence grew up a lot for Paris Saint-Germain, but maybe because Thuram didn't score that goal. Well, he's not guilty for that, but he would have
trying to take this away.
No, because I think it's not as simple. Yeah, it's perfect after the game. You can say it's perfect, but you can go into the games and check when it would have been.
Had chances,
it could have been
could have been more goals.
Not before. No, there are two clear chances before when they scored the goal, but Thuram had one chance to score. Had he scored, it could have been another story. Maybe Paris Saint-Germain were better that day, and they proved it. But you know how fragile a game can be. So I don't want to forget that.
All right, OK, thank you for that reminder. Of course, that game has led us to discuss who should win the Ballon d'Or.
Oh, no.
Dembélé is favourites at 11-4 on. It's a two-horse race, really, between him and Lamine Yamal. This is what Lamine Yamal had to say about who should receive it when he was asked about it this week. Who do you vote for the best player this season, or whoever wins the game on Thursday? For me, it's the best player. Now, he's talking about Spain, by the way, who are in action against France. For me, it's the best player across the whole year, but everyone sees it their own way. I'm confident we'll win on Thursday, but whether we win or not, I would vote for the best player over the whole year. If on Thursday it doesn't go as me or Dembélé won, then who do you vote for? Someone playing on Sunday from the final? For me, it's based on the whole year. But if people want to put it all on Thursday, then let's play. Here we go. Of course, it is Spain against France, which makes it quite interesting. What I thought, there's other quotes from Lamine Yamal, which I thought were quite interesting as well, Ian. It was all about, well, look, if I win the Champions League and if I win the World Cup next year, then obviously I'm going to be in the conversation for the Ballon d'Or. But as a team, that's what I want to do. And I think that's something different, maybe the narrative that we've seen from him than, say, Vinicius Jr. over the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it always seems to be a controversy. It certainly was last year, wasn't it, with Rodri and Vinicius. But Lamine Yamal is going to win the Ballon d'Or more than once, I think, in his career. I mean, he's a player that gets you out of your seat. He's a phenomenon. He probably gets you out of your seat more than any other player currently playing. But if
So then TST starts next week. It starts tomorrow, in fact. $1 million up for grabs for both the men and the women's side. There to keep abreast of everything that is going on is Alexis Nunes.
Well, Dan, I actually had to put in a special request to get our girl Ali Krieger to speak to us today.
You're
but
very
you know what?
Busy.
She only comes with VIPs when she's in tournament mode. We got Heather joining us as well, who last year was literally the hypest hype woman I think I have ever seen. And it paid off. But this time, defending champions, bigger and better. The tournament's gotten bigger on the women's side, gotten juicier, may I say. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Heather, what are you expecting? You feeling the pressure because girls are coming for your crown?
Yeah, no. Yeah, but what do they say? If you come for the crown, you best not miss. So, no, yeah. We are feeling the pressure, but in a great way. It's fun to kind of feel those nerves again. And it's good to be the standard, right? Like, I would want nothing else in life than to be somebody that people want to knock down, right? So the first year we were the only women's team. Then last year we bolstered the squad, got Allie involved. And when we had the inaugural women's tournament, we were able to come home with the purse. So we hope to now repeat. That's the goal. We have a great squad, great team, a good coaching staff. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, you never know in 7v7. It's a whole completely different game, but I like our chances a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, we learned last year that's a whole different game. I just heard your coaches meeting. I'm not going to give away too many tactics, but I heard them talking about possession, drills, dynamics, whatever that is. Ali, you guys are coming prepared. This is like a mini World Cup now.
Yeah, we came down a few days earlier than last year because last year we only had one session before the big game. And we were gassed. Yeah. Maybe I'm speaking for everyone, but that was definitely how I felt during that game. And we lost 3-1. So we had to show up and show out a little bit earlier this time around and get the team together. It's nice to be back with, Heo and Carly and Allie and my former teammates from the national team. And just like Heo was saying, feel those nerves again. But even just out on the training field, just, playing alongside my former teammates and close friends is, so exciting. And it's such a joy to be back together, and it's that fun, I think, that really is the underlining factor of why we show up doing this tournament every year.
Now I'm just going to get to it because I don't know how the draw works, but everyone just wants a U.S. woman up against Solo FC final. Heather, let's be honest, it's always that former teammates, friendly rivals now, who knows? Is that the juicy matchup everyone's waiting for? Do you feel it?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, Hope wanted to put in a squad, and I love that she's back in the mix of soccer. She's probably the best of all time women's goalkeeper, in my opinion. And I love that she decided to put in a team. I think that it's awesome. So I think it creates a fun storyline for fans and teams alike. As we have been trained to do since we've been little, we're going to focus on our game. We're going to focus on our game. We're going to just one match at a time. But we really learned that last year. Remember, Ali, I kept saying literally one pass at a time, one play at a time, because you can get too ahead of yourself, and really every play matters, every goal matters, and you just got to go kind of step by step. So if we face Hope in Solo FC, it will be exciting. It'll be a good game. Obviously, I hope that she plays. I haven't seen her obviously play in a long time, but when you have that talent, you don't lose it. So, I hope we see them and bring it on.
I'll have my adult grape juice ready for that showdown if it happens. But final question, of course, just because, Ali, your women's national team up against my Reggae Girls of Jamaica tonight. What are you guys expecting from that game? And is it a Reggae Girls win?
Probably not. Okay. No. Jamaica's women's team has grown so much over the past few years, and it's so exciting to see the investment, behind the women's team getting a little bit better. And we're not there yet, but it's getting better and better, and you can see that the improvement then translates onto the field. So they're getting better and better, and they're growing. And so it's been really fun to watch them. And now against a young, talented United States who are still in a phase of really turnover and trying to test players. And so it could be, up in the air. Any team can win on any day. So it'll be really exciting to just have a great atmosphere, good environment, and allow some of the younger players to get out there and show what they have.
So just a reminder, more from Ali and I want to be with Christina tonight following the US women against Jamaica. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. And TST then kicks off tomorrow morning. You can see the LA Bombonera taking on Hidalgo live at 8 p.m. on ESPN+. There you go. Frank, you were thinking of getting involved.
Yeah, I wanted to know how much you have to pay and then
the
pick the best team.
There we go.
Never know.
What would your role be?
Coach.
Mouth. Extra time's next. Stay with us. Welcome in then to the latest edition of Extra Time. Thank you very much. Ian is staying up late with his curtains. Don with us as well.
Looks like a king. Ian the king.
Yeah, he does look very regal.
Yeah.
Very regal.
You need a throne. You need a throne and you're perfect.
There, exactly.
Yeah.
Come on, so be someone peeling grapes and feeling... How's your knee, Ian? Last time I saw you were hobbling around. Did it sort itself out?
Your Majesty.
Yeah, it's still pretty awful, to be honest with you. I mean, the guys that know as professional footballers about knee injuries. But mine's just wear and tear. He needs a steroid injection or something, I think.
Wow. Oh, wow. Robbo's getting a new one next week.
Ian.
Robbo's getting a new one next week. Maybe you get 2 for 1. Go in there. A surgeon could do both for you.
Yeah. Maybe I'll offer
That's a kind of a deal.
Yes, gives the curtains. Offer them up.
Dan, Ian, Lee Dixon got his knee replaced, I think, about a year ago, and they've done such a good job. He got his other one done. So they're all the rage at the minute.
I thought it was going to be a funny punchline at the end of that, Don. What a terrible story.
Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, I know loads of guys have had their knees done, and the rehab's pretty brutal, Ian. But everyone I've spoken to said it's the future. They're amazing. Get yourself a knee replacement. Go for it.
There we go.
Well, I might end up having to do that. Thanks, Don.
There we are.
But we haven't come here to talk about my knee, have we?
I was just caring, Ian. You know, it's the summer. Slow, not much going on. It's all right. If Rodri... Ian, if Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or over Vinicius last time was justified and the ESPN FC panel found nothing wrong with it, they shouldn't Vitinha also be the Ballon d'Or winner this time over Lamine Yamal?
Yeah.
You can argue that. You can argue about the Ballon d'Or till, the cows come home. Really. I'll tell you another player who I think should be in the mix. Nuno Mendes, the left back. Is there a better left back than him in the world? And Hakimi on the other side. So you can put all kinds of people in the mix there, really. And you pay your money and it takes place.
I think the people who vote don't even know what the left back is. They only interested about number 10 or strikers. That's the only thing they vote for.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's the sexiest positions.
If
you have every player in the world lined up against a wall, it's very unlikely you're going to pick a left back as your first player.
Of course.
And that's just life as a left back.
That's what it is, and I agree with that. But that's not called the best player. Call it the MVP. I agree, and it's why American they were really right about that. MVP means most valuable person, people who make people come to the stadium. And Lamine Yamal and Ousmane Dembélé, they make people come to the stadium. Not Nuno Mendes, not Frank Leboeuf, or Don Hutchinson, with all due respect to Don.
Wow.
But strikers, number 10, the people they pay to see them.
Yes.
So rename the Ballon d'Or, and I will be okay with that.
So you would call it the what?
MVP.
How would you say that in French? Because of Ballon d'Or.
Meilleur, je sais pas. We can call it MVP. We say weekend for the end of the week, so we can.
You say weekend?
Yeah, we say weekend. Yeah.
What do you mean?
In the end of the week, the Saturday and Sunday, we call it the weekend in French.
But what's that got to do with Ballon d'Or?
No, because you say the name, you say English name, we keep MVP.
Oh, because weekend is the same.
Yeah. Because we say MVP, don't change it.
Right, okay.
Keep it MVP.
MVP, and you're.
That was an example.
It's like Dodds Lee Dixon story.
No, even worse.
Don, do you see the CWC, the Club World Cup, of course, being bigger than the Champions League in the next 50 years?
What kind of question is that?
I mean, what a question that is. I mean, it's the very, very first tournament that they've ever had. I mean, the answer's no. I'm just honestly very intrigued looking at the games that I've got. I think I've got Inter Miami against Dortmund. I think they play Porto. I think I've got Fluminense and Palmeiras.
Are you laughing at him, Ian? What are you laughing at? Don't laugh at Don's agenda.
No, I tell you, hand on heart, I can't wait to see how the likes of Inter Miami play against the European sides.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the standard of USA football at MLS. I don't know the standard.
They can make a statement about it.
Yeah. You can't wait to see that broadcaster money in your bank account at the end of the tournament, Don. That's what you're most excited about.
I want to see how Inter Miami get on against the European sides. Yeah. Honestly, I'm being sincere.
There we go. So who will win the Club World Cup, Don?
I don't know the answer to that question, but Man City would be one of the favourites.
Why?
What about Real Madrid?
Yeah, why Manchester City favourites? Couldn't beat Real Madrid already.
They're delaying Jude
Bellingham.
Really playing it. Alexander-Arnold paying Liverpool so he can play it.
I can't believe we have a debate about
sorry,
that.
the king has spoken in his throne there. I'm sorry. I didn't mention Real Madrid there.
There we go. So, but you're going for Manchester City, Don?
No, I'm not. I'm not seeing a ball being kicked yet. Give me a couple of days in.
Well, no, this is the question. You said Manchester City will definitely win it. So that's that.
There is no Italian
I didn't
teams
say
there.
definitely.
Yeah, Inter in it.
I didn't say definitely.
Inter, no, be stubborn.
Yeah, why don't you support Inter now? Do you just turn the page on then because they got humiliated in the final?
They haven't got, and they haven't got a manager. Who's going to manage them?
Don, you should. Yeah, exactly.
Ange. Give Ange the job. Give Ange it for a couple of weeks.
Frank, what's bigger for French football? Marseille's win in 1993 or PSG in 2025?
Oh my God, that's the question because they really hate each other, and it's good to always be the first, as the Marseille fans are saying, always the first for forever. You know what? It's hard to say because Marseille weren't the favourites against Milan AC. That year, I remind people that you had Van Basten, Gullit was on the bench, by the way, and some others. It was the big era of the the Milan AC. I would say at the time, Marseille made a bigger impact. That was bigger because Paris Saint-Germain. They have fantastic players and they were able to compete because of the money of Qatar and everything to have the good players. It was harder for French country and for French teams to compete against European nations teams.
For all, Hakimi had the most chances created from open play in the Champions League this season, while also having the most possession won, also totalling 9 goals and 14 assists this season. As the modern fullback, how is he different from those of your era? Although I suppose, Ian, you could ask how different he is compared to a certain Steve Nicol, who, of course, despite the fact that he was a brilliant defender, was also there in front of goals, getting goals and supplying plenty of assists as well. So maybe this isn't as modern as some people like to think.
Well done.
He's rapid though, isn't he? I mean, he's rapid. I mean, Stevie was brilliant. Stevie had a brilliant football brain, like outstanding. And Stevie was like playing right back, playing as a centre back, playing in midfield, playing on the right hand side. Stevie gets in any sort of Liverpool team because he was that good. But I think Hakimi, the modern day fullback, he just ticks every box, doesn't he? He's super quick. He gets goals. He gets assists. He can play inverted, which is the sort of in vogue at the minute. He can defend. He's not lacking. Like we often talk about Trent being so good going forward, but sometimes he's got a mistake in him. You watch Hakimi play and Nuno Mendes, as Ian said there. I mean, these two guys are the best in the world in their positions.
So Hakimi was better than Stevie, Don?
No. No. There you go.
But if I can name my former teammate Dan Petrescu. Petrescu, I played with him. I played against him for Romania. He would have played this modern era. It would have been a masterpiece. He was able to defend. He was able to attack. He was able to score goal and give assists. How many nice balls he gave to Gianfranco Zola? That guy was a tremendous player, and he would have been perfect for that football.
Ian?
Well, you talk about MVPs and defenders being a bit unfashionable for awards. How about Paolo Maldini, Cafu, Roberto Carlos?
Yeah.
You can be a star.
Emmanuel Amoros before.
Exactly. Calm down, everybody. This is nothing new.
Yeah, whatever.
Like Ian's curtains. Frank got a chance to watch the 98 World Cup. How many of today's stars could survive the way the game was played then?
So Zidane, for sure.
No. So if we transport back now, say that PSG side, or
against the 98.
If we go back to 98,
it's
how
hard.
different?
It's hard to compare. You have to also think about the refereeing. You know the way because that's a big point. Because of course, if you go with the referee that we had, with the way we were thinking the football, they don't exist. After 30 minutes, they escape the game because we're going to kill them. So they're going to be scared. But if you have a referee from now,
because the rules weren't as stringent, you could get away with a lot more.
You could even tackle with the tackle from behind. You know that was quite okay. If you played the ball, touched the ball, the referee would have said nothing.
Sure.
If you have a referee from now, we can finish the game. We are red carded. You know, after 20 minutes we have 5 players red carded because they won't accept that. So it's hard to compare, but I would say overall they are faster than us, more technical than us, but physically again, I go back to that.
Yes.
With the defense what we had, the goalkeeper that we had, the midfielders that we had, but the creative players that we had at front. That would be hard.
Yeah.
But the way they played the final, I'm not sure we would have resisted against them. They've been perfect for the final.
Don, obviously you played in the same era.
No, I love these conversations because I'm obviously very biased, but I'm actually being sincere when I say when people talk about 90s football and the noughties football, I think some of today's players couldn't live in that era.
No.
There's no way they
Why
would
not,
last
Don?
in the
What's the
90s.
key
They wouldn't.
factors?
But the violence
I think
of
we
the
were
game.
more physical. I think Frank's nailed it. I think some teams, and it's all hypothetical, but some teams would be beating the tunnel. You'd stand against guys in the tunnel and they're all 6'4". No, there would be. Frank, you know what tunnels are like.
Yeah, no, that's true, but I forgot to talk about
I always fancy myself as a player, and I played against the best, like, the Paul Scholes and the Stevie Gerrards and the Vieiras and Emmanuel Petits. And I remember standing playing against the Invincibles on the penultimate day of the season, and we got walloped. I was at Everton at the time.
But again,
I've never ever stood in a tunnel.
Yeah, but again, Don,
I'm sorry, Frank, very quickly. I've never stood in a tunnel, thought we've got no chance today. And playing up against that Arsenal side, I looked in the tunnel against all their superstar players and thought, we have got no chance of winning this game. So some of today's players couldn't live with the 90s teams.
The problem again, if you put a referee from now and you play the way we were playing, we don't finish the game because we were ready to go to the war. We were ready to fight every Saturday. I remember Batty playing for Newcastle against Dennis Wise. They ended up in blood in their shin pads, and they were fighting. They beat each other, and in the end they hugged. I said those two are absolutely crazy. But they love the football. They love the fight.
Alan Shearer broke your nose lots of times.
Yeah. But that was part of the game. And the referee, play on. You play the ball, but I play on. The game. Get away, French guy. But that's what it was. Roy Keane would have existed like 10 minutes in nowadays game. And that's for sure, because the way he was talking, the way to the referee, to the player, and the way he was playing. But he was a great midfielder in nowadays.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Meanwhile, Ian, how would these modern day commentators, live back in the day? No internet, no computers, you got to rely on your notes, rely on your brain. They'd have no chance.
Well, they only had 12 players, one substitute to commentate on. Not so many names. These shirts that you can't see the numbers on these days, 5 substitutes, it's a heck of a lot harder to commentate, I would say,
can you imagine?
now than it did back then.
Well, a lot of journalists.
Dan, can you imagine in our day, Dan, we played on Boxing Day and the day after Boxing Day.
Yeah.
We played 2 games in 2 days.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Imagine them these
drunken.
days.
Good.
But I do think the guy's been talking about eras. I think great footballers could have played in any era because they would have adapted to how the game was then. So the guys who are stars today could have played back then, I think, when Don and Frank were playing. And in the same way, Don and Frank, if they had to go into today's game with the modern fitness, condition, nutritioning, they'd be able to cope just fine in that as well because they have that talent and drive to be pro footballers.
It's why I would have loved to see Pelé right now.
Right.
Because what he achieved in 58, 62 and 70, winning the World Cup, and what he was, and you can see some reels on internet of what he was doing. They're just copying him. It's like music. He invented everything. That guy was amazing.
If you're wondering why Frank is here, like many of us, no one else can come to work at the moment. Stevie and Craig are off, as is Shaka. Shaka doing something productive, though, with his time off. And this is him with Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, flying the flag for Show Reeses and the red card, which has celebrated its anniversary this year. Great stuff from Shaka, of course. We're very proud.
Is he preparing his power ranking?
Well, yes, I think he might be. His power ranking.
Yeah, cool.
That is it. That brings us to the end of today's show. Tomorrow, Kay will be here alongside Frank to look ahead to Spain against France, and it's Germany against Portugal in the Nations League.